But let's move on to a game that is engendering a fair amount more controversy than anything over in the Riot side of things, and that is Cyberpunk 2077. Wake up, samurai. We've got goodwill to burn. Now, as we explained last week on Nerdist News, Cyberpunk 2077 has had a rocky launch, to say the least. Between an unavoidable game mechanic that induced a seizure in a Games Informer journalist, characters' wieners straight up clipping through their pants, and game-breaking bugs that made it near unplayable on last-gen consoles, this highly anticipated RPG has faced consumer outrage and demands for refunds. And although the developers at CD Projekt Red are hard at work on large patches to fix performance issues in this game, they've earned fans' ire primarily directed towards management, because CD Projekt Red announced that gamers could get refunds for the game without actually confirming this with major storefronts like PlayStation Network or Xbox Live. They've since worked some of this out because they've actually taken things down off of like the PlayStation Network store, and you have all these reports coming out about furious developers taking umbrage with how management handled the situation, potential lawsuit from investors and shareholders, and now Sony, Microsoft, and brick and mortar retailers like Best Buy are implementing looser return policies for this game, but the damage kind of feels like it's been done. So I'm curious, this is a game that's been kind of like the marketing machine has been in full force all year long. Before we get into it a little bit, have you played Cyberpunk yet, and how has your experience been? Kale, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, I played a lot. I'm in Act 3. I think I'm level like 28 or something. So I've I've logged at least over 40 hours at the very least. And I have encountered so many bugs of every single type. I've encountered missions I couldn't complete, items I couldn't pick up, bad GPS tracking, weird zoning for enemy alerts. My friends have had glitches that have started and not gone away, including ones that have covered the entire screen. There's weird stuff personally, like that feels like the game is incomplete. Like you can't like modify cars in a game that is like all about modifications. You can't modify your car, you can't modify your person, you can't pop tires, the water doesn't make splashes. There's so many things that make this game feel incomplete. But to answer your question, yes, Dan, I've played it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've put 40 plus hours in as well and encountered my fair share of bugs, including something where I'm climbing a ladder that rockets me like 600 feet away.
Why does it do that? Why does it do that?
Look, I have cyber arms. I'm jacked as hell, and I just propel myself off. I pressed the fire me 600 feet button by accident. I should change my key bindings.
You get so excited to be at the top of the ladder. You're just like, I made it! You shoot straight off.
Sometimes if you stand on the wrong piece of like trash or something, you just clip and it kills you. But even so, even with all these glitches, I'm still having a very good time because I can see all the labor of love in there. And I'm someone who used to play the Cyberpunk tabletop RPG on which it was based way back in the day. So this has been my most anticipated game for ever since it was announced like 7 or 8 years ago. And it's just a bummer to see how this situation is unfolding because, the developer has been pouring their heart and soul into this. They've been crunching, working long hours, and they all have everyone is serving a different master. They have to like get their work done. They have to meet shareholder demands. It's just unfortunate because this, I think, has really kind of overshadowed the good qualities of the game for many people out there. Let me see in the chat. Connor Pike says, I've had no problems with my Cyberpunk. I'm playing it on PS4 Pro. Nathan S says, I never buy early, wait for the bugs to be worked out first. Vincent J. Rubio says, I was soldiering through on PS4, but I was getting nauseous. And Syndrax says, I'm 40 hours into my second playthrough. Love the game, but the bugs are everywhere and need to be fixed. Game is practically unplayable on last-gen consoles. And that's interesting because that is something that the head of CD Projekt admitted on a shareholder call. I think it was Adam Kaczynski said, yeah, our focus was, we didn't place enough focus on last-gen consoles. They didn't even really make stuff outside of PC codes available for review. But I'm curious, how does this compare to past game launches like a No Man's Sky or like any Bethesda game, which are infamously buggy? And why does the conversation around this feel so different? So Trisha, I want to start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of, I'm renaming this game Cyberpunk 2076 in comparisons to Fallout 76 and that launch. But I've been playing a ton of the game on PC, on Twitch stream, and I like to get into the gutty works of my PC. So I have a very high-end spec machine to run this game. And the glitches that are not just the visual glitches, but the glitches that actually stop your game, that you either have to completely close out the game, come back in, reload a save, etc. Or for me, you spend 10 minutes really trying to figure out how to get past this part, only to realize that it's been a glitch the whole time. And if you just loaded a save, it would have been very obvious what you needed to do next. That to me is super frustrating. But I think we've seen a lot of this in releases before, and this is a poor compilation of just people being frustrated anyway from being stuck inside for so long because we're in a global pandemic, plus this game being hyped for so long, plus the way it was advertised was very, behind closed doors, press only, and it really made people expect a certain thing from the launch. And when the launch came out, and especially on previous gen, or I guess current gen, I don't know what we're calling the PS4 and the Xbox One right now, but that gen hardware, and people were expecting the demos and such that they had seen on PC. I understand why people are upset. You're paying the same full price as people, who are potentially playing it on a platform that has been much better quality assurance tested. Although, like I said, as someone playing it on PC, I often wonder how much QA testing went into this one, because there are bugs everywhere. And yes, some of them are funny and I don't mind. But some of them are incredibly frustrating as you're playing through. And overall, exactly what you said, Dan, my heart goes out to the devs who've been working on this game for over a decade and should be, able to go outside and do victory laps right now because it's finally done. And they put so much hard work into it. And you can see when you play it, the shining moments of brilliance in it. And it's ironic for a world, the cyberpunk world, where big evil corporations ruin everything. It's ironic that it seems like a bunch of corpos at the head of CD Projekt Red may have ruined the final step for the dev team and everybody who put their heart and soul into this.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to it. They're sort of putting profit before product, it seems, based on the stuff that's been coming out through reporting from places like Bloomberg and Kotaku. And it's just disappointing. But, I also think about previous games like No Man's Sky, Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, and Fallout 76, even games that were kind of lambasted when they first came out because they did not deliver on their promise, or they were buggy, or they did not live up to expectation, have been tinkered with repeatedly to the point where they are vastly improved. So, Maud, I'm curious, do you think that Cyberpunk can do kind of what No Man's Sky did over time? And what does CD Projekt Red need to do to regain that goodwill?
Initially, I was going to say yes. I think that it could have bounced back, especially when you look at the case of Witcher 3. When that game came out, it was like meme city, especially with Roach. Hello, neighbor dog. But especially with like Roach, who would appear on top of like houses for no reason. It was like a bit of a joke. But then they patched that up. It got a reputation of not only getting Game of the Year, but in many cases, including my own, it was Game of the Decade. And I think that actually then solidified CD Projekt Red as an amazing game studio. This time, though, I think by Sony coming forward and being pulling the game off their shelves and making sure that no one can buy it, that's kind of like someone tapping them on the shoulder and regulating them in a very public way. We didn't have that with any other game before, and I think that's what shifted the tone. But what I really think is interesting, and I only thought of it just then, is that this game should have been released on the new gen consoles and PC only. It should not have been back adapted at all. It should be focusing on that new technology, which actually works in the favor of what Cyberpunk 2077 is all about. The problem is Sony, who reprimanded CD Projekt Red by pulling the game off the shelves, has completely sold out of PlayStation 5s. So I'm wondering if they were able to deliver more PlayStation 5s and they even team it up with the CD Projekt Red or whatever, but if there's more of a chance to be able to play this game the way it should have been played, then is Sony almost at fault by making people buy it on a last gen console because there was not enough PlayStation 5s, especially around Christmas time or the holidays, to be able to get the best way to play it. So there's a lot of faults across the board. CD Projekt Red often overpromises and underdelivers. It's happened time and time again. I think that the staff are really angry at them, and that's an interesting point of view. The shares plummeted 12% when all this went down. Stupid is saying it was made for current gen. I think that by trying to adapt it for Xbox One and PlayStation 4 is what really, really hurt it, and it should be working forward and not backwards.
Yeah, I think that's a great point as well, because this, I mean, is such a flagship title, and I understand. Like, look, PS4 and base PS4 and base Xbox One have an install base of millions and millions of people worldwide. And if they were going to do this, they needed to, honestly, they had the best excuse in the world, a global pandemic, as a reason why they should delay release date another year. Like, look at what Halo Infinite did. They were supposed to be a launch title for the Xbox Series X, but they pushed back a full calendar year. And I think that's going to make a significant difference. People have already waited this long. What's another year going to hurt? Because, you know, it's that like infamous Shigeru Miyamoto saying a rushed game is bad forever. A delayed game is eventually good. And I think that is really speaking to the core of the matter here with Cyberpunk. But I'm hoping they can get to a better place, because when the game is good, it's great, but when it's bad, it's terrible. And I think that badness can be mitigated through performance patches and things like that. So I'm curious to see what's coming down the pipeline.